Hey, it's you, man, from KC95 here. Good evening and welcome to Toasted Tavern. Your host, Scott Tobin, and the man called Wags are ready to bring you the night in sports. So pull up a stool, grab a drink, and let's get toasted.
And once again, John Hewlett with the great intro for Toasted Tavern. I am Wags alongside Scott Tobin. And man, it's been a long week. I know we didn't get a chance to spend much time with you guys last week, but we are back tonight, ready to talk about Midwest sports and really get you prepared for our big Kansas City trip coming up a little bit later on this week. This upcoming weekend, we will be in Kansas City covering everything Royals Cardinals, and we're going to have some special stuff going on as well. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a second, but I want to say hello to my friend Scott. Scott had a pretty big day today as well. First off, man, how are you doing? And tell me about the press conference you got to be a part of today.
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man, after kind of a long week. But, yeah, doing okay. And, yeah, I was able to jump in. I was part of the Field of Dreams press conference with Major League Baseball today as they get ready for the game on Thursday, and got to talk to AJ Pierzynski and Liam Hendriks just for a couple of minutes, and they're pretty excited about getting out to Iowa this week and playing a little baseball in the cornfields, man, hoping to see some ghosts roam around in the old White Sox uniforms as they pull out those old Sox uniforms for this series.
Yeah, they looked phenomenal. I know I saw the pictures of the unveiling of those classic uniforms, and they looked amazing. And you talk about AJ Pierzynski, former St. Louis Cardinal, albeit for a short amount of time. What kind of things did they talk about outside of being excited about being in Iowa?
Just basically, the movie and, had they watched it, the excitement of doing this, being out there, just, playing in a special game in a special environment, doing something, being so much closer to the fans in that little ballpark that they've built, because they're not actually playing in the field from the movie. Major League Baseball has actually built a field there on the other side so they don't disrupt that iconic set. But they're still basically playing right on the other side of the cornfield, and it's going to be really cool to see, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. We were going to get a chance to go up there last year when the Cardinals were involved in it, but, COVID sucks and pretty much canceled our plans for that. But, we're not going to get up there to see that, but we are going to be in Kansas City this coming weekend for the Royals and Cardinals matchup. We're lining up some things as we speak. We do know one thing for sure, and that's we're going to be at the Negro League Hall of Fame and Museum on Saturday. Time's still a little flexible because we may have to adjust due to some guests that are coming in. But I tell you what, I'm super excited to be a part of that, to go to the Museum and Hall of Fame and actually get to experience it for the first time for myself. I know that the Cardinals always bring their young guys up there, and a lot of the veterans still go back up there as well when they're there. I'm excited for it, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good time. Yeah, I'm excited to actually get to the museum myself, and it's going to be fun. And yeah, hopefully we're going to have a couple of special guests. And it's been fun the last couple of days playing phone tag with people, trying to get this stuff set up and seeing who's texting me each day. And it's been pretty interesting to check out my phone list the last couple of days. I'll just say that.
Well, I tell you what, last year when we started to get the likes of, Rick Ankiel and Brian Jordan and guys like that, and now I look in my phone as well and I go, I have Rick Ankiel's phone number. I have Brian Jordan's phone number. And now you're communicating with the Cardinals brass and all of that. And it's just, I know that we're supposed to be professional and we're supposed to be tight-lipped, but this is exciting because this is something that I've dreamt about since I was a kid. And now that we're starting to see the fruits of our labor really starting to push to this, this weekend is going to be incredible. We're really trying to set up a lot of really, really cool things. So if you get a chance, if you're going to Kansas City this weekend for that Royals Cardinals series, make sure you swing by the museum on Saturday. Check that out as well as us. And, also follow our social media because we'll let you know where we're going to be. Stop by, say hi. Maybe you can get on the broadcast. It's something that you can possibly do if you're up there in the Kansas City. And if not, watch us on Facebook and YouTube because we'll be live.
Yeah, we're going to be all over the place. We'll be at the museum. We'll be at Kaufman. We may pop over to Arrowhead. We may be in downtown Kansas City at some point. We're just going to be all over the terrorizing the western part of the state for the weekend.
Yeah, and we need barbecue restaurant suggestions. I know Tom Franklin, who's waiting in the wings, has already put this out there to multiple outlets, but let us know your barbecue recommendations for Kansas City because I know that there's multiple places out there that we should visit. We're only going to be able to hit a few, but I want to get my fill of barbecue this weekend for sure.
Oh, definitely have to hit the places while we're out there, and it's going to be fun. And like you said, hopefully people will come by and say hi, and come bug us while we're at Kaufman or wherever we are. It'll be a good time.
That certainly will. Okay, let's talk about some stuff that maybe was good and bad this past week with the St. Louis Cardinals. They get swept by the Braves last week, but then they take 2 of 3 from Kansas City. Nothing too exciting, I would say, in this. I mean, some of the games were pretty exciting as far as the Royals series were concerned, but that Braves series was just so demoralizing that it really got fans kind of down about this team and if they can even make a run. I mean, you were down there for a little bit. You got the chance to experience the crowds and all that, but what's your feeling of the Cardinals and where they're at right now going into the series in Pittsburgh?
You just got to win games, man. That Braves series was frustrating. You got to look at that as opportunities that you missed. I mean, you had 2 games that you had leads in those games late in the games, and Giovanni Gallegos basically just kind of imploded on you 2 nights in a row. And then Alex Reyes had a rough night, and it's going to happen. People want to jump on Reyes. The kid's been amazing all year. He's had a couple of bad nights, but, this bullpen's kind of taxed too. I mean, these guys are pitching. You're using those 3 guys a lot. And, they just kind of are where they are. There are some signs with their offense a little bit. You're seeing Goldie and Dylan Carlson and Arenado heat up a little bit. Harrison Bader continues to get on base. Tyler O'Neill was on base like crazy in this Kansas City series. But, you just need consistency. We saw it a couple of times even yesterday. You have the bases loaded, nobody out. And you have your backup catcher up and he hits it to a double play, and then you have John Lester. I mean, those are just the breaks of baseball. But we've seen that happen to him a lot this year, where it seems like you get the bases loaded with your 8th place hitter or your 9th place hitter up and can't get the runs home. So you just got to win games. You got to beat Pittsburgh and Kansas City, try to take at least 2 out of 3 in both of these series, and then you play Milwaukee and you see where you go from there. And there's still 50 games left. So while it's bleak, there's still things that can happen.
That there are, and even you talk about the bases loaded and Kisner coming up, double play, Lester's up. Well, a couple innings prior to that, Lester led off an inning with a ground rule double, and they could not bring him home with the heart of the lineup coming up. So yeah, it's just the inconsistencies that we're seeing with this team. It's been prevalent all year, and it's not something new for us. It's just, it seems like in the moments where they really could produce, they kind of falter a little bit, and that's where the frustration with this team has grown. And you talk about Yachty maybe not hitting as well as he's had in the past couple of years. You've got guys like Tommy Edman, Matt Carpenter thrust into that 5th spot, which is not necessarily guys that you want in that 5th spot, but they haven't really done a whole lot with changing up the lineup. I mean, DC up at the top has been very, very good. You've got the Goldschmidt Arenado thing working out well with Tyler O'Neill behind that. But then you've got, Yachty and Edman and DeYoung, guys that are just kind of scuffling all year before you get to a guy like Bader. Do you risk moving a guy like Harrison Bader up into that lineup and dropping those guys down where, the 7, 8, 9 guys are probably going to go 1, 2, 3 no matter what, but at least you've got 6 guys that could maybe put together a couple of hits to get some runs.
Yeah, I don't know. Harrison Bader is not a middle of the lineup guy. He's just not. And then, then you run into the problem of him trying to do too much instead of trying to just make contact. He's trying to drive the ball out of the ballpark or trying to do a little too much. Yachty is starting to heat up again. He was in a funk, but Yachty is definitely starting to hit again. But like you said, your 2 big guys that have really struggled, for quite a while now are Paul DeYoung and Tommy Edman. I mean, I don't know. I think that's where the Cardinals are going to have to make some, at least look at improving in the offseason is second base and shortstop. And, when you talk about second base, I don't know what you do with Tommy Edman. I mean, I think he's a good role player, but he's proven that he can't be a leadoff hitter because he can't get on base enough to bat leadoff. His on base percentage is awful. He doesn't draw walks. And you can't hit him in the middle of the lineup because he doesn't have any power and he's not going to drive home runs. So I think you go back to this, I think Tommy Edman's role is the Ben Zobrist role, and then you have to go, whether it's Nolan Gorman's ready to play second base or you go out and get somebody. And I think the thing that this team needs more than anything else, when you really think about it and you look at this lineup and go, what are they missing? They don't have a leadoff hitter. Dylan Carlson's done okay, but he's not a prototypical leadoff hitter. You need that spark plug guy that, starts things, gets on base, and creates damage. I mean, you look at a guy like Ketel Marte would be the absolute perfect guy for the Cardinals if they could go out and get somebody, a second baseman, or a Starling Marte even. One of those 2 guys, somebody like that that's got some power and speed, they really need that at the top of the lineup to get this thing going.
That they really do, and it's going to be something that they're not going to really be able to address until the off season. But maybe a guy like Nolan Gorman does come up. Maybe he's a September call up this year, because I don't think they call him up any sooner than that. Continue to let him just develop down in Memphis. But a September call up, if he comes in and shows that he has the ability to A, lead off, B, play second base, and provide that power, maybe. But he strikes me as a guy that could be more of that middle of the lineup kind of guy, and that would actually help things immensely, because maybe you move Bader up to the top spot. Maybe not the typical leadoff guy, but if you can slot, Bader, DC, Goldie, Arenado, Tyler O'Neill, Nolan Gorman, that might do something. I don't know. I'm just kind of spitballing here.
No, I still think they need to go get that guy. I don't think they have him in the organization, and Gorman's definitely not the leadoff hitter. I mean, you're going to have him. You might have him hit second next year. More likely, he's probably going to hit seventh or eighth. That's probably where you want to stick him to not have pressure, because you're going to have the DH next year. But I mean, that's stuff we're going to have all off season to talk about. But that's the biggest glaring need I see in this team, is they need that catalyst to really get this offense going. And because I mean, look at it, more often than not, how often in the first inning do Goldie and Arenado come out with nobody on and 2 outs? Almost always in the first inning.
Yeah, all the time. Well, one piece that's starting to improve and has been pretty good all year has been that starting rotation. Unfortunately, KK does go on the IL. We talked about it last week about him having potentially some elbow issues. Well, there is some left elbow inflammation. He does go on the 10-day IL. The Cardinals activate Daniel Ponce de Leon, who's been on the IL for what seems like forever. Not sure if he's actually going to get into the rotation, because there's help on the way. Mr. Jack Flaherty is coming back sooner than we expected, I think. He's looking like he might start either Thursday in Pittsburgh or Friday in Kansas City, depending on how they see fit. The DH will be available in Kansas City, so he won't have to hit. But I know I'm excited. I know you're probably excited about Jack Flaherty making his return to the rotation. It's going to help out a lot.
It is. Although I think we need to temper expectations, because I don't think he's going to come out there and throw 7 or 8 innings right away.
No.
You're going to get 4 or 5 innings from the first 2 or 3 starts, and he may be rusty. I mean, you just have to expect that. So don't expect Flaherty to come out there and be lights out, pitch 1 the first time he goes out, and then bitch and moan that, he's not the ace because he didn't look good after he hasn't pitched for 3 months. I mean, so, but yeah, hopefully there are some signs of help. Miles Michaelis was really bad the other night in his rehab start. So his come-up date has been pushed back yet again. And I'm just going to throw this out there. Do we actually think we see KK pitch again as a Cardinal ever? I say no.
Yeah, I mean, if this inflammation turns out to be more than just a flare-up, I don't see how you can. Although, I mean, obviously we've seen the Cardinals throw money at guys that get injured and spend half a year not pitching anyway. But if it turns out to be more than just a simple flare-up, yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. I mean, they've seen a lot of good from KK, but both years he's been here, he's dealt with injuries, whether it's his back or his elbow now. I just don't see how they can justify sinking more money into a guy that potentially could miss a bunch of starts and maybe is more suited to the bullpen at this point.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that the Cardinals admit that he has elbow inflammation is probably 5 times worse than it really is, and he doesn't pitch again this year. And, all those people that a month ago wanted to sign him to an extension, and I was screaming, no, please don't bring him back. I mean, he's proven this year that he's not able to go more than about 5 innings at the most when he's healthy.
Yeah, that's exactly the case. And it works well when you've got a bullpen that you can maybe have a guy go 5, and then you've got a good, maybe long reliever, and then you can get to your guys. But this Cardinals bullpen has been very, very suspect outside of the big 3, that you can't really rely on that. And that's why those guys have been used so much this year, is because your starters have not been able to go longer than 4 or 5 innings in a lot of cases. And then you're stretching these guys out, having to pitch them multiple days. Although I will say this, over the last couple of games, the bullpen has pitched a lot better. Even the guys that we were lambasting last week and the week before, they've started to pitch a little bit better as well. But we have to also remember it was the Royals, and the Royals are not as good as the other teams that we've been facing. So we'll have to kind of reserve judgment on that and just really hope that they can continue to build that confidence up over the next week or so before they face Milwaukee and really see what they have when the Brewers come to town.
Yeah, it's going to be a test. We'll see. The Brewers are kind of ravaged with COVID right now, so we'll see what kind of shape they are in by the time we get to that series. And like I said, there's still there's still time left to make a little bit of a run. Not a lot of time, but they can still do a little bit of something if they get healthy.
That they can. How are you doing, man? It's difficult. I'll say this. I know you're getting your earphones back in, but I'm gonna probably let you tag out. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing all right.
Okay, let me know when you need to tag out because I got Tom ready to go. We're gonna talk about the Blues here in a little bit.
Yeah, I'll let him jump in here in just a second. I'll get a couple more minutes in before I run away.
Yeah, no, you got to make sure your health is the most important thing. So what other things have kind of been on your mind the last week as you've kind of been stewing at home and just kind of relaxing?
Getting ready for football season right now. That's the next thing on my plate is watching football. And I don't know if you saw the comments from Coach Drink after watching Missouri's practices last week, but he was not happy with his football team. He pretty much came out and said, if this team shows up like this, they're not going to be a 500 football team this year. Really, really critical of the way they're practicing right now and the way they're looking. And so that has to make you a little bit nervous if you're a Mizzou fan. I mean, I know the coach is trying to light a fire under his guys, but you don't really want to get 3 weeks away from the start of the season and have your coach talking about maybe a 500 season. But college football is just around the corner, man.
That it certainly is, and we had the Hall of Fame induction ceremony this past weekend in Canton, Ohio. Lots of guys going in, obviously the 2020 and the 2021 class. For us, Isaac Bruce going in, huge honor. Joe Buck also going in. We've talked about them in the past, but I wanted to get your thoughts real quick on another St. Louis connection that went into the Hall of Fame this weekend. A guy that I feel like does not get enough St. Louis love, and that's Steve Atwater. Why does he not seem to get the love when it comes to St. Louis's concerns? Because he never played in the city?
Right, yeah. There's probably a lot of people that don't realize that Steve Atwater is from St. Louis, but he played great football here as a high school collegiate kid, and then, went to Denver and was a dominant safety in the NFL for a long time. One of the hardest hitting safeties in the NFL during his time, and, helped the Broncos win a couple of Super Bowls along the way. Played at the end of the John Elway years in Denver. And, Steve Atwater was definitely one of the more feared safeties in the NFL, and people in St. Louis should definitely look up what he did, even in his high school days, because he was a really highly touted recruit coming out of the St. Louis area going into college.
That he was. And Isaac Bruce's speech was from the heart because apparently his iPad got stolen from the podium. Rumors were that Chris Berman accidentally took it off the podium, and were they just trying to conceal the St. Louis love in his speech?
It's possible. Stan Kroenke probably paid somebody off to go steal that before Isaac could talk, but he still professed his love for St. Louis, and as anybody that follows our page has seen over the last week or so, he talked about, his dream as an expansion team in St. Louis and him being part of the ownership group, which that would be just about the perfect match for St. Louis if we could ever get a football team.
Well, we got a pretty good response from that tweet that was put out, because I was expecting a lot of hatred and vitriol and like, no, hell no, get away. But I think the overwhelming majority was, if that was part of the ownership group, if it was like Isaac Bruce and Kurt Warner and those guys, if they had gotten together and got a group together to bring an expansion team to St. Louis, I think a lot of people would actually have been okay with that. And I think that was a little surprising to me.
Not to me. I think a lot of people have said, I'm sick of St. Louis. I don't want a football team here unless it's a homegrown team, it's an expansion team, and it's local ownership. But if you could get, if you get the expansion team and then you have, like you said, an Isaac or Orlando who still lives in the area, or Adam Timmerman, some of these guys that still live in St. Louis to be involved in that ownership group, I think that would be the perfect situation. And I think you would see football in St. Louis be as big as it ever has been, if not bigger.
And I want to bring Tom into this because I know he just got, wooed by the Arizona Cardinals, formerly of St. Louis. And what is your take on that? I mean, obviously you've become a fan of the Arizona Cardinals, but if Isaac Bruce and some of these other guys were to be a part of an ownership group, would you be okay with that? And would you support a St. Louis NFL team again?
I would. I mean, I for the longest time was a never again NFL guy. I was just as angry as a lot of people were, and a lot of people had the right to be angry. I mean, it's one thing to be like, the Bidwells and leave town the way they did, but they didn't salt the earth, on their way out, like Kroenke and Demoff and that AMF letter. It just the whole thing just sucked, and St. Louisans had every right to be bitter about that. But I think And of course we tweeted this out as you alluded to, on Toast of St. Louis, and we had over 60 likes and about a dozen comments, and they all were, except for a couple, were like, yeah, let's do it. And I think that tells me one thing. That tells me that St. Louisans can forgive. We do have that in our bones. We can do that, but it could work if it's presented the right way. I mean, the whole idea of Isaac Bruce being a part of the ownership group, people like that. I remember, I think Chris Long was talking about, possibly being part of an ownership group like that. People love Chris Long. I mean, if he was part of that group, great. Orlando Pace, he still lives in the St. Louis area. If he was part of that, that's great. The more the merrier. It would show, for one, I mean, I think fans are going to be skeptical of any out of town ownership group that tries to, own a St. Louis expansion football team. I mean, yes, Kroenke was from, Columbia, Missouri, but we saw where his heart truly lied, So, I mean, like I think fans would need someone that is truly born, bred, and bleeding St. Louis in order for an NFL expansion team to work. And we just gave the NFL a blueprint saying, hey, get some of these former Rams involved in the ownership team, and we'll make it work.
I saw a really interesting tweet, and this would be interesting. An ownership group with an Isaac and Orlando and Adam Timmerman, some of those guys that still live in the area. And then a guy like Shad Khan, who wanted to buy the Rams, sells the Jaguars to a Jacksonville-based ownership group, and then he becomes the owner of the expansion group with those guys. That would be interesting because we know he's a St. Louis area guy. He wanted to keep the Rams in St. Louis. That might be an interesting situation.
It could be. The only thing I see with that, though, is that just from people I've talked to in Jacksonville, Shad Khan's, kind of established some, I guess, business roots in Jacksonville. And, like the whole deal with the London, for instance, I was talking to someone a few years ago about that works in a news talk radio station down there. And he's like, that we love the London deal whenever the Jaguars are playing in London, because that has actually brought a lot of English and London-based businesses into Jacksonville. So they were kind of happy about that, believe it or not. So I don't know about that, but it would need to be more than obviously just Isaac and Orlando. You would need a big money guy behind him. I don't think Michael Bidwell would ever sell the Cardinals and then go into an expansion team. Like he apparently still likes St. Louis a lot. He was the one that voted against Stan Kroenke's plan along with the Chargers, but I think he's rooted in Arizona. So who's the hero going to be? Who is going to be the one that steps up? I saw someone suggest Jack Dorsey, of Twitter, because Dorsey's a St. Louis guy. I never really heard of him being a real sports ball guy before, so I don't know if he's that civic minded. Like he's done some things for St. Louis, but he hasn't been like the Taylor family. The Taylor family, they have their fingerprints all over a lot of the St. Louis development. So maybe it is the Taylor family. Maybe there's another part of the Taylor family that's like, well, hey, you got your soccer team. Well, we're gonna get a football team now. Who knows? I don't know the Taylor family that well, but
it's the Christmas one-up thing. You get together with your family for Christmas, and everybody's trying to say, hey, well, I did this year. Well, no, I did this year. Well, I did this year. Well, you got a hockey team. Well, we got a new soccer team coming in. Well, you know what? I got the NFL. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, I went to space. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Maybe we can start a letter writing campaign to Jeff Bezos. I mean, he's got enough money.
There you go.
He went to space after all. I mean, now what? Now what? He doesn't run Amazon anymore.
I'll say this. I love that tweet that went out that basically said Jeff Bezos has spent more time in space in the last 20 years than the Maple Leafs has spent in the second round in the same amount of time. So.
Ouch.
It's true, though.
Ouch. It is. And thankfully, we're a St. Louis-based podcast because we'd be hearing it from the Toronto fans right about now. Actually, you know what? I take it back. I think Toronto fans at this point are kind of like how Blues fans were before we won our cup, and that we just like, yeah, you're kind of right. I think they're at that point of loathing right now.
Well, fellas, I'm going to say my goodbyes for the evening. I'm going to roll out of here and get a little bit more rest, try to rest up and be ready for Kansas City this weekend. I'm going to let you, I have faith in you guys to finish this show up, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right, man, Scott. Get some rest, and we'll talk to you later.
All right, see you guys.
Feel better, bud.
Thanks.
All righty. Well, Tom, let's get into it. I mean, you know what? Let's finish up this NFL talk real quick because I know you kind of started hitting on something that I really think we need to dive into a little bit is that local ownership piece. You know, St. Louis is not a massive city. It's not a New York. It's not an LA. It's not even like a Houston or Dallas. So you talk about the Taylor Group being there, and Derek, we're going to get to the Blues talk here in just a second. Don't worry. We will talk about the Blues. There's a lot to talk about there. But who could you see potentially being the savior and bring an NFL team in here? Now, it doesn't have to be somebody with super deep pocketbooks if you bring in guys like Bruce and Warner and Holt and Timmerman and guys like that. Or does it really have to be someone with a lot of weight in the city and let these other guys just be ambassadors?
Well, the billion-dollar question is going to be whether or not this lawsuit against the NFL and the Rams will play into some of that setup, like whether or not St. Louis gets awarded an expansion team and the new owner doesn't have to pay for an expansion fee. Maybe they NFL invest in some like a Riverfront Stadium. I mean, maybe not the whole thing, but invest a big chunk of it, like they were supposedly going to do, for the proposal before the Rams left. I mean, then they Indian givered that away. A lot of that depends on how much is going to be basically given gratis to a new owner. And I almost kind of I have to think that it would have to be someone that is a mavericky type of a guy, because you're probably gonna have to put a stadium along the riverfront because the NFL they prefer to be in an urban area. So you're gonna have to tear down a lot of buildings, get eminent domain for a lot of those buildings, and then tear down the buildings. And you're gonna do a lot of redevelopment. And you got to build the stadium, and you're probably going to want to make sure it's a little bit better than the TWA Dome was, so they don't leave in 25 years. We have walked down that path, and maybe not have the CBC involved in that really at all this time, because that kind of led to that. That'd be kind of great. But to me, I mean, I'm still not getting my hopes up over it, just because, as we've just talked in the last few minutes, there's so many questions. I mean, this has got to happen. This has got to happen. This has got to. It's not just as simple as saying, oh, well, the NFL is just going to settle with the city of St. Louis and give St. Louis an expansion team. Great. Where are they going to play? They're not going to play in the Dome. I mean, they might be able to play there for a couple of years as a temporary home, like the Rams did with the LA Coliseum. But we all knew the LA Coliseum wasn't going to be their home. And let's face it, the Rams left St. Louis because the Dome was not adequate enough to be their home. So we'll see. I mean, but in the meantime, I'm starting to invest myself more into the Arizona Cardinals. I'm sure other fans in St. Louis have started to invest in the Kansas City Chiefs or other teams around the area. It's going to be a hard sell. I mean, as I said, I think Isaac Brucius gave us an idea of what that could look like, but even he admitted that was like a dream. It wasn't necessarily like something that he's got the ball rolling on.
Oh yeah. It's you have to wait for this settlement to really kind of get done. That way, like you said, the framework. What money is it going to take? What is the NFL going to do? And Derek, what was wrong with the Dome? Sorry for being naive. Tom, take it away. Go ahead.
Loaded question. That is a loaded question. So, first of all, as a former season ticket holder for the St. Louis Rams, the Dome had all the fun and ambiance of a cave. It was a cavernous place. It could be loud. I was there for the Greatest Show on Turf years, and that place could get loud, and that sound gets trapped in there, and it was a very intimidating place. But it wasn't. It was a hunk of concrete. Well, it still is. It's still there. It just is not a very charming place. And the deal that the Rams had with the city of St. Louis was that they needed it to be in the top 25% of all NFL stadiums. And of course, as we all know, since 1995, NFL stadiums have become these gaudy, monolithic places. I mean, Jerry World, Kroenke World, I mean, you name it. There was no way, realistically, that they were going to retrofit the Dome to be a top 25% NFL stadium. I mean, look at what Seattle is doing with the Key Arena. I mean, that has been a Herculean effort to retrofit the Key Arena, and it's still got the same old roof, but the whole thing inside is new, as Blues Fan Reacts can attest, and he's going to join us here in just a little bit. And of course, they only did that in Seattle because they literally is no other place in Seattle they could have put a stadium. So they just say, hey, we'll just take what we have. But yeah, so basically the deal was, since the city couldn't make that Dome the top 25% of the NFL, that basically turned their lease with the Rams into a year-to-year lease. And so that was basically Stan Kroenke's out. So that's what's wrong with the Dome. It was just a very vanilla blah place, and it also gave Kroenke the ticket he needed to go to LA.
Well, I'll say this. I went to a monster truck show there a couple years ago.
Sunday.
Actually, it was on a Sunday, 2019. And, we sat lower bowl and relatively close to the actual event. And it was just, like you said, it was blah. I mean, this is monster trucks. I remember going to the monster truck show at the old barn and just literally having to hold my ears the entire time. Yeah. I was sitting 30 rows from these trucks in the Dome, and I'm like, are they on? So all of that kind of going into it, it wasn't a conducive environment for a football team or anything like that. I mean, the scoreboard, the video board was terrible. You couldn't see anything on it. It was overall just a really, really poorly built and poorly run stadium. So Kroenke got out of a bad stadium, but he also, lambasted the entire city in the process.
And to be fair, in the final years of the Dome, at least final years when the Rams were there, they did upgrade the scoreboard. To where it was actually decent, because I was there for the Battlehawks for one of the two games that they played at the Dome, and it was great to be back in there just because all the memories of the Rams and all the games that I went to and the Greatest Show on Turf was there. But during the game, I walked around the stadium a little bit. I went up to the press box. I had a press pass, and then I also kind of walked around the upper level concourse a little bit, just kind of checking things out. And I was just like. Meh. I mean, it's a place, and there's concrete, and it is a place. It was nothing special. It really wasn't.
Not at all. So hopefully we'll hear more about this as the months go on. We're going to try and get Derek King on in the next couple of weeks as well to update us on that progress as well. But let's get to it now. Let's bring in Mason. Let's talk about the Blues, because we haven't had a chance to talk about hockey in a couple of weeks. A lot of us have been busy. And first off, Mason, we got to get your reaction to the Brandon Saad deal, because you've been silent, but
I've been silent.
You've been withholding your response. And honestly, for all of your fans out there, this is the first chance for them to hear what you think of the Brandon Saad deal. What do you think, man?
I mean, I wouldn't say I have been silent. Okay, let's get that straight. I haven't talked about this intentionally just because I wanted to, do a proper video. Obviously, I'm kind of on a little bit of a break right now. But I mean, I think because a lot of people are expecting him to get well over 6.5. I've heard rumors of him getting, a multi-year 7x5. I've heard, so being able to get him at such a good price and still having just barely enough to sign Kyrou and Thomas, pending a Tarasenko trade, I think this is a good move from the Blues. I think he's going to have a lot of chemistry with players like O'Reilly and especially Buchnevich. I feel like all three of those guys will work really well together. They play very similar games and kinds of games that just complement each other really well.
And I know Brendan Saad, for the past couple of years, he was on a big contract, with Chicago. He had, was making $6 million per season. And then, of course, he was traded to Colorado before last season. And I did find it interesting, the response out of Colorado once the Blues signed him. There was a lot of disappointment from Colorado fans. They liked him in Colorado, and he was just, there for a year. The Saad deal to me is might end up being a bargain over time, kind of like how David Perron's deal is now, in that, he's making $4.5 million. He is a very capable two-way forward. I think he's a better scorer than Jaden Schwartz is. In fact, they're very similar type of players. But I love Brendan Saad at 5 years, $4.5 million, than Jaden Schwartz at 5 years and $5.5 million. I mean, to me, there's not a lot separating those two in terms of what you get on the ice. And as I said, I think Saad's a better scorer. I think Jaden might be a slightly better defender. But still, it's not enough to make it like $1 million per year for a difference.
Right.
I think Saad was a savvy move. I think we were all kind of a little worried because the first day of free agency came and went, and there was the reports that the Blues were still in on Mike Hoffman until the very end, and then they got outbid by Montreal at $4.5 million per season, which, that kind of shows you what, I mean, the fact that the Blues couldn't match $4.5 million, to me, tells me what they really thought of Mike Hoffman. And I think Brendan Saad is going to be a much better signing than Mike Hoffman will be in Montreal.
Well, and here's the one thing when you're talking about comparing Saad and Schwartz, health. Brandon Saad's a guy, knock on wood, that has not had to deal with a lot of injury the last couple of years, where Schwartz, it seemed like every single year he has gone on the injured list for an extended period of time. So not only that, you have longevity, you have health, you have a better scoring ability. And we've seen this with the Blues, and it's weird to say this considering the defense wasn't all that great the last couple of years, but for some reason, bad defensive players come into St. Louis and tend to up their defensive game just a little bit as well. So, I mean, Mike Hoffman, you talk about, he actually was a decent two-way forward last year. Not great. No, I mean, not right. Silky level or anything like that. But you could see, being on a winning team, there was a little bit more of that, okay, I'm going to get back and try and, pick the pocket or get back on defense to do something here or there. It wasn't always totally consistent. But being on a winning team, you want to play and improve yourself. Well, not saying that Saad hasn't played on a winning team. Obviously, he played in Chicago during their runs. He got a couple of cups, and he played in Colorado. But also coming to St. Louis, knowing the work ethic that this team has, you might see a little bit of an increase in a focus on the defense. Look what Tarasenko did in his career. He was at the start, score. Now he's a two-way forward that maybe makes a little bit more than a two-way forward should make, but you saw his input into being a defensive player. So, and you've got the Mike Hoffman stuff up there right now.
And I'll tell you this right now. This is Jay Fresh's great, he makes graphics that, people like me can understand. And you look at his defense, the EV defense, and it's at 41%, which doesn't look great. It's still in the red. But I believe before he signed with the Blues, that was like in the single digits. I mean, that does kind of go to show you. You can see kind of in the graph on the bottom right there how his analytics on defense actually improved quite a bit. I mean, he didn't contribute much on offense, outside of scoring, which that we knew that about Mike Hoffman. But you're right, he did chip in some different areas on the ice, a little bit more than he had, but whether that's sustainable or whether that's just because he was part of the Craig Berube system where it's two-way or death. And in Hoffman's case, it was almost death. I mean, he was almost traded at the deadline. I think that was just more of Hoffman having to adapt. Whether it's sustainable or not, I don't know. But you know what? He's not our problem anymore. He's Montreal's. So,
hey, Russell. Hello, Russell. How are you doing?
Russell, how you doing?
And Derek says, I like that Saad has played for a few of our division rivals, should be able to contribute insight. That's another great point as well. He's played against the Blues, so he knows their style, but he also has played with Colorado and Chicago. So there's also that in there. And you're right, Derek. Fabry also got death.
Yes. And yeah, going to Detroit is basically career death. I mean,
at least he's getting paid. At least he's getting paid.
The check's still clear. That is what matters.
That is very, very true. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the guy we've already talked about here, Vladimir Tarasenko. He's still a Blue. You know, we going up into free agency, we were all expecting a deal to materialize at that point. It's been quiet for the last couple of weeks. It's been a little weird. Obviously, you know, Doug Armstrong came out and said, look, you got to prepare like you're going to be a St. Louis Blue this year. Are we getting closer to the realization that maybe Vladimir Tarasenko is a Blue to start the season?
No. That's not going to work. That is not going to work out at all. Look, Tarasenko wants out. It's been made very clear that now he's willing to go just about anywhere. I mean, I would love to see them try to trade him to Buffalo to put that theory to the test. But that would be freaking hilarious. It would be hilarious and sad at the same time because his career will go to die in Buffalo like everyone else's does. But no, I think there is going to be a trade eventually at some point. I do kind of wonder, Mason, if there's been some chatter that maybe there were other deals for Tarasenko, but Armstrong didn't feel good about what he was getting back in return. And now he's overplayed his hand a little bit. Do you think that?
Yep, I absolutely think so. I mean, we heard from Frank Saravelli and Andy Strickland that there were multiple offers on the table before the expansion draft where, you know, the Flyers were probably going to definitely overpay for it. I mean, now that they're kind of realizing like, oh shit, nobody wants him. Why should I pay this much for him? I think that's kind of sent a message to not only Flyers GM, but every GM around the league that maybe this might be an overpayment. I don't want to be the GM that looks stupid this offseason, a la Doug Armstrong style, you know? So I feel like, yes, I think he definitely overplayed his hand. I think he overplayed it, you know, when he didn't get a deal done before the expansion draft, because I'm 90% sure, even before that draft, that Tarasenko, I was still positive that he wasn't going to be selected. I don't think that was something that the Seattle Kraken wanted to take a chance on.
Yeah, but you also have to remember, if you make a trade before the expansion draft, you have to protect the guys that you're bringing in, and you're not making a deal with Tarasenko and just taking anybody. You're trying to get guys that you want on this team this year. So the fact that you believe that Seattle wasn't going to take Vladimir Tarasenko means you would want to keep him through the expansion draft because he wasn't going to be taken. Whereas if you trade him before the draft, then the guys that you bring in, one or two of those guys you may have to protect, which would then slide a guy out that you may not have wanted to not protect. Maybe that slides a Robert Thomas out or Jordan Kyrou, and Seattle swoops in and goes, yeah, middle 20s speedster. Yeah, I'll take a Jordan Kyrou off your hands. So, I mean, as far as overplayment of his hand, I don't think that was technically the case. And we just looked at it. I mean, Derek said it a minute ago. Army has been patient. He's been patient with free agency. He's been patient in the trade market. I mean, look how long it took for the Ryan O'Reilly deal to materialize as well. So I'm going to give Doug Armstrong a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt that he's going to be able to pull something off, because it feels like, and I know we talked to Alex Ferrario about this a couple weeks ago, that he thought both of the New York teams were out. But I really do think it's going to come down to the Rangers and the Islanders. I think one of those two teams is going to pull the trigger on this move, and Doug Armstrong's really just trying to basically wait them out and playing this game of chicken. Like, okay, how long do you guys really think you can wait to bring a guy like Tarasenko?
By Armstrong, if that's what he's doing.
But he's done it before. He waited Buffalo out, and look what we gave up for Ryan O'Reilly. So
that's true. Yeah,
you're essentially going to be able to trade Tarasenko for somebody good.
But O'Reilly, that still happened on deadline day, though. I mean, or not deadline day, the opening day,
free agency day.
That was it was the afternoon, but it still happened. But you're right, though. That was a deal that took months to materialize. It was a situation where it has been reported that Armstrong kept checking in with Jason Botterill, kept checking in. I believe that they were even spotted at the NHL draft that year a couple of times, like chatting in a tunnel. So you're right. It did take a while, but at least we had an idea that, okay, the Blues may still be in on Ryan O'Reilly, and we had all this evidence to show that there was something going on there. We have nothing with Tarasenko right now. It is deathly quiet. There's a reason we haven't done a Toasted Blues lately, and that is because we haven't had anything to talk about, because we haven't had a Tarasenko trade to talk about.
Right.
The biggest thing that gives me pause, there have been reports that teams have looked at Tarasenko's medical records and have been, okay, fine, he's okay. But I look at a team like New Jersey. New Jersey was rumored to be in on Tarasenko. They just went out and signed Tomáš Tatar to be their, in their top six, their top six scoring winger. Now, Tatar's not exactly going to set the world on fire, but he's a guy that in a full season can get you, 25 goals.
Mhm.
I mean, Tarasenko, yes, when he's healthy, he's a guy that gets you, 30 to 35, but let's face it, he hasn't done that in a couple of years. Yes, he had 33 in 2018-19, the Stanley Cup year, but in the years that have followed, he has 7 goals in the regular season total, whereas Tomáš Tatar has 32. So you're talking, and the Devils didn't have to give up anything for Tomáš Tatar. Tatar was a free agent. In order to get Vladimir Tarasenko on your team, you have to give assets to the St. Louis Blues, and apparently the GM's being really picky about that. So you have to be really, really confident that Vladimir Tarasenko is A-okay, and he hasn't been traded yet.
Mhm.
So what does that tell you?
Right.
Well,
So
who's
to
the
Wags' to
Who's the
your
Islanders
point,
GM real quick? Who's the Islanders GM real
Lou
quick?
Lamoriello.
Yeah, and we know who Lou is.
He's super.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, to your expansion draft thing. Okay, so let's say benefit of the doubt, giving you the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it's the Flyers who are going to get a deal done with the Blues. Okay, who are the players named that were going to come back to the Blues?
Honestly, I don't even remember. I'm pretty sure Voracek was one of the guys that was mentioned.
It was Voracek, and I think there was a Provorov or Lindblom mixed in there, but the Blues would have had to overpay for that.
Would you have
but let's
exposed both
assume
of those guys.
Let's assume benefit of the doubt. Let's say it's Voracek. Okay, let's say it's Voracek coming back. Okay, you're saying okay, but then you're gonna have to protect the player coming in, right? Okay,
right.
Let's have let's have Voracek back, and let's protect him at the expense of Ivan Barbashev's slot. Do you think Seattle's picking Barbashev over Dunn? I don't think so.
No.
It's not a guarantee.
So.
It's not a guarantee, though.
Not a guarantee.
I feel like you're playing with fire if you expose a guy like a Barbashev or a Kyrou or something to that effect. Whereas it didn't feel like you were playing with fire when Tarasenko was being exposed, because either you're getting rid of $7.5 million. Yes, you're not getting anything back, but it is cap space. You're getting money, or you're able to trade him when he's not picked, and you're able to protect the other guys. So I get your point too, though. Don't get me wrong. I totally get your point. More than likely, Dunn was probably going to be the pick no matter what. But in my mind, seeing how important Ivan Barbashev has been to the Blues, I think they made the right call on that.
But that is my point, though. Because if let's say all of that happens, we get a Voracek trade done. That whatever offer was on the table then, do you think we're getting that same offer now if we were to trade him? No, we wouldn't get anywhere close. His value was still high before the expansion draft. I'd say the value coming back to the Blues is worth it. Whereas now, if Doug Armstrong really wants to unload Tarasenko, he's going to have to sweeten the deal there. I don't think any team is going to overpay for them. In fact, how that trade is going to go down, the same way how I kind of described if Dunn was going to be traded, I think the Blues are going. I think that trade is going to look stupid later on.
Did we really think that we were going to get something of significant value for Tarasenko? Remember, we're arguing about the fact that teams are looking at his medical history because he has 3 shoulder surgeries.
I'd rather have Voracek than nothing.
We're sitting here.
I call like Voracek a first and a third or something like that, or Voracek a first and a prospect or something like that. I'd take that in a heartbeat.
Oh, I sure would. I sure would as well. Are we really even sure that was actually the offer, though? There's a lot of rumors going out there, and it is the expansion draft. So, as Tom has said it multiple times, you can never trust what anybody says during that time frame.
No,
do we actually feel like that was the offer, though?
I think if I'm the Flyers and I'm not, if I'm not thinking too closely about it, I'm hearing, Tarasenko, the superstar player, wants out. Yeah, why not pull the trigger on that? But remember, they said it wasn't just like this was a rumor. There was a deal that was ready to be signed that Doug Armstrong actively said no to. So
if only we knew what the deal was.
You have to consider. So I can understand your point by not wanting to risk a Barbashev. I'm happy Barbashev's on this team. He's one of the most underrated players in the NHL, in my opinion. Honestly, he is so valuable to this team. I'm just saying, is the trade-off for potentially, not guaranteed, but potentially having Barbashev exposed worth the extra value that we could have gotten for Tarasenko before the draft? predicament I'm kind of in
I,
right
I
now.
still think it was the right move to expose Tarasenko in the expansion draft,
I think so,
especially
too.
with all that came out that he didn't want to play in St. Louis anymore. You to have that extra $7.5 million. I mean, that had a certain value this offseason in of itself that maybe wasn't there in past off seasons. From an aesthetics, but if you're looking at this thing from Doug Armstrong's point of view, okay, you have a superstar forward in Vladimir Tarasenko. Everyone and their mother has his jersey. He's a household name, and you trade him like Dexter Fowler for a couple baseball bats and a couple baseballs. From Doug Armstrong's standpoint, that would probably infuriate the fan base. I mean, to not get anything of real value for Tarasenko in return in a trade, like if they have to cover half of his salary and then they get back like a 24-year-old maybe, in return, that's not going to look good either. So I do kind of wonder if maybe Doug Armstrong is trying to, treat Tarasenko a little bit like a petulant child who is having a temper tantrum, making Tarasenko go stand in the corner for a little while and maybe hope this blows over and he comes out in 15 minutes and apologizes. Because at that point, because at this point, I'm looking at like the Philadelphia Flyers, for instance. I was looking at their cap friendly while you were talking about their interest in Voracek. They only have about $4 million left in cap space, and their roster's basically set at this point. They have to re-sign Travis Sanheim, and then that's it. They're at 23. They're done. A lot of these teams I'm looking at, their rosters are pretty much set right now. So I said earlier that I thought that, I was very adamant, like, nope, we're not going to see Tarasenko in a Blues uniform ever again. I am kind of wondering if we indeed will, or if at the very least they get Tarasenko to play at least long enough until like the trade deadline, and then maybe a new market opens up for him at that point. And of course, keep in mind, we're all grasping at straws here because there's absolutely no news coming out about Tarasenko.
Yeah, it's been dead silent.
We have nothing to work with except for, stuff that was in effect, during that flurry a couple weeks ago. Since then, definitely silence. So I honestly, guys, I don't know.
Yeah, and the more it gets closer and closer to training camp and no deal is materialized and no news has come out, the more likely I think he is going to be with this team, because he can build up his value and you can build up your trade market. You can basically say, as Doug Armstrong, hey, look, I got a guy that is going to probably score 25 goals this year that I'm willing to trade, and give me your best offer. Teams are going to be looking at that, and it will be Eastern Conference teams that he'll unload him to.
Oh, yeah.
So, right. I mean, the longer this goes, and you have to look at it as Tarasenko too. And, if no one's really beating down the door for me right now, maybe in my eyes, I had to go out and prove myself even more, prove that I'm healthy. You can say, my medical records look great, but seeing him out on the ice and producing in actual games might be another impetus to get him to be moved and to have teams bring in offers for him. So I'm thinking, if we get to, maybe the end of August and we still don't hear anything, I think more than likely he's with the Blues at the start of the season.
Well, we haven't really looked at this even from Tarasenko's shoes yet. I mean, he still, maybe he looks at this and says, hey, I still have to prove myself. I still have to prove that my shoulder is healthy. I have to prove that I can play, because he looked good playing for Russia. But even some people were saying that, like, okay, he still wasn't like the full Tarasenko of old. So, if I'm Tarasenko and I'm still a Blue going into training camp, is being a petulant child and holding out going to help my cause? Probably not. I mean, it just doesn't work like that in the NHL. I mean, at least from all the cases I'm thinking of right now. So if I'm him, I'm thinking, okay, I have to prove myself. So maybe if he starts the year as a Blue, we see 110% Tarasenko. We see max effort. So then he can be traded and get, finally make his way out of St. Louis. Maybe that's what he has to do. Because what other choices does he have? He can't be like Kaprizov and go back to the KHL. I mean, I guess he could.
Wasn't that like a 10-figure deal on the table or something?
1 year, 8 figures.
Holy shit.
Which, by the way, as many people have pointed out, the KHL has a team salary cap of like $14 million. Yeah. So you're basically paying, you're going to have Kaprizov and then like a bunch of 17-year-old Russian prospects that, are going to be making, $5 a week, and they'll get a warm meal every other day.
Isn't that like high end in Russia?
Just wild.
It depends on where you are.
Wild. Just
Where you are.
wild. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about, no pun intended with the just wild thing. But that was dumb. I'm sorry. I should have.
No, it worked.
The other thing I'm thinking about when it comes to Tarasenko, I'm thinking about if I'm a player in the locker room and knowing that this guy that I've looked up to, especially if I'm a younger player, this guy doesn't want to be on this team anymore. Well, how's that going to affect the locker room chemistry? I bet it's going to fuck it up. That's my main reason for moving him, honestly, at this point, I don't think he'd mesh well with the players anymore.
Yeah, you do worry about that, and then it becomes a case of, does the team keep him away, just until he finds his new team? It's a mess.
What about a buyout?
That's not a Doug Armstrong thing, though.
I know it's not, but if you are the Blues GM and you absolutely cannot move Tarasenko, is that an option you maybe explore?
I mean,
because if I'm Doug Armstrong, I think that's something I do, honestly. If I absolutely cannot move him,
it would be a bullet in the chamber. I mean, that's definitely for sure. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and, yes, I went ahead and did this on Cap Friendly. I'll go ahead and show it to you here. A second here. Share that. Click that. There we go. So this is Vladimir Tarasenko's. Actually, that's a Twitter tweet deck. I shared the wrong screen.
My goodness,
that's a lot of information
there.
Yeah, that is not correct. All right, let me try this again. This time without the sucks. So
I was gonna say,
but yeah, looking at Vladimir Tarasenko's potential buyout. Here we go. We got it pulled up right now. There we go. So in 2021-22, if they bought him out, the Blues would save $7 million this coming season, which I don't know if there's anyone out there in free agency that's worth $7 million, but who knows? Then in 2022-23,
that's when it gets ugly.
That's when it gets ugly. So you would still save $3 million next offseason, and then the following two off seasons after Tarasenko's contract is up, there'd be a $2.5 million.
One more thing, and it doesn't make it better. But one more thing is that supposedly the cap is going to go up the next year.
Yeah,
so
like
I know
about $1 million.
Yeah, so I know that they talk. That's why I said not wonderful, but that is the thing. I mean, who knows in the future? We were talking about, this is a $81.5 million cap for the next, what was it, like 8 years or something like that? And they're like, and now they're already talking because they know how screwed some of these teams are, especially after the Darnell Nurse and Seth Jones and all that bullshit. Oh my God, we're having a lockout soon.
You know what?
100% the Chicago Blackhawks' front office fault. I mean, they know they're on their way out, so they are just like screwing the league on their way out is what's going on right now. In case nobody has picked up on that, but they're already talking about like making the cap higher and higher. So maybe that $2.5 million, it might suck for that 1 year. If the Blue season doesn't go well, that's when you maybe start experimenting with a rebuild. I mean, the last time the Blues did a half rebuild was at the end of 17-18 when they pulled the chute at the very end because they knew they weren't good enough. And they missed the playoffs for the first time in, what was it, like 15 years or some garbage, like something like that. And next year they go out and win a freaking Stanley Cup. So
speaking of teams that are rebuilding, Arizona Coyotes, AZ Sports Guy checking in here, says that we can have Phil Kessel. And then
you can have him. You can have him.
Well, then Derek floats out, trade one locker room cancer for another. And I know you're thinking Tarasenko for Kessel. Kessel makes $6.8 million, and then he's a free agent. 1 more year, then he's gone. You only have to deal with his ass for a half a season, and then you can flip him at the deadline if he doesn't work out for you. You might be onto something here. I mean, then again, as Russell Clark points out, the city probably doesn't have enough hot dogs for Phil Kessel.
It's true.
Steve's Hot Dogs is going to have to expand to yet another location just to accommodate Phil. But you might have to look at something creative like that with Tarasenko at this point, where you're doing like a good old-fashioned hockey trade. And no, Arizona Sports Guy, we are not going to take Louis Eriksson for Vladimir Tarasenko. You can stop that dream right now, okay? Keep your Jay Beagle, keep your Antoine Roussel.
That's right. They got Beagle too. I made so much fun of my brother after that. I made so much fun of him.
We don't even want Dmitry Yaskin. Sorry. I mean, Yaskin's the new Arizona Coyote. He's going to be back in the NHL. We already told him to fuck off once. Okay, we're not going to do it again.
Then he went to the KHL and led them in goal scoring and was their MVP a couple of times. So
I didn't
maybe that spurred him on.
KHL. So I mean,
it spurred him on. Well, real quick,
watch him get 5 goals this year. Watch him get 5.
He probably will. So real quick, we were talking about guys that can teams that Tarasenko might go to, and I keep circling back to the Islanders for some reason. I don't know why. I feel like that's going to end up being where he goes. It just makes the most sense for in my mind that's where he's going to go. You talk about having to be creative. You talk about being creative and kind of having to do a hockey trade. Which guy from the Islanders do you think it would make the most sense to kind of maybe flip to the Blues in a deal like that? I mean, I'm looking at it. I mean, you're not trading Anders Lee. You're not trading your captain.
No.
Is a guy like Barzal? And I mean, I don't think that's the case. They're going to lock him up. But Brock Nelson, do you take a JG Pageau? I mean, Josh Bailey. I mean, what guy do you think that Islanders could part with that would make sense and still be a hockey move?
Anthony Beauvillier.
Yep, Beauvillier.
And you know what? And I say that because yes, he's a restricted free agent. But the Islanders, they have, according to Cap Friendly, almost $12 million in cap space still, and they still have some spots on the roster to fill. We talked about Lou Lamoriello and how patient he is. He's been, getting, his, Adam Pelech just signed to a big contract. Beauvillier and Ilya Sorokin are still the only players that still need contracts, but they have some spots to fill. And if the Blues we're able to get some, maybe like a Beauvillier, and we have to take Cal Clutterbuck back or something like that. Clutterbuck's $3.5 million 1 year. He's a bottom 6 grinder. But if that's going to be the salary offset, I'd be okay with that.
I'd take a Cal Clutterbuck. No problem. I mean, I've always thought he would probably look good in a Blues uniform. He probably fits the mold of the Blues as well.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think how the cap gymnastics would work though.
Well,
because we still have Thomas to re-sign.
That's true, but that's it though. And the Blues have $1.5 million cap.
Right, and Thomas is going to get easily 3.5.
So that's going to be Thomas is going to probably eat the rest of that up. I mean, I don't think he's going to get a big raise because he was hurt a lot last year.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe closer to he might get Stanford money in a sense, 2.5 maybe.
No, probably closer to 2. Honestly,
I mean,
you think he's going to get that low?
Yeah.
He was hurt all last year. I mean, when players get injured like that and they're in their restricted free agent years, they don't get big bumps. And plus, keep in mind, Thomas does not have arbitration rights. So they can tell him, they can basically do what they did to Vince Dunn and tell him, okay, this is what you're going to get. Take it and like it. And of course, Dunn didn't like it.
That's true. Nope, I didn't even think about the arbitration thing. Okay, yep, you're right.
So no, there's ways to do it, and I know Lamoriello.
Let's upload a Zach Sanford to the New York Islanders. Let's do it.
Done. Deal. Sold.
Done.
I
mean, we're talking about how he's going to go to one of the 2 New York teams, and the only reason why I say he's going to the Islanders is because there's no way the Rangers would take him.
Well, we've already made a deal. We've already made a deal with the Rangers anyway, getting Buchnevich. So I don't think
they're pissed at us. So they're
not going to be fooled twice. So yeah, I think it's going to be the Islanders for sure. It's just a matter of when it probably happens. I mean, everything that I've seen and read and just kind of followed, it feels like it's the Islanders or bust. I don't see any other team really getting into it right now. But like I said, if we get to the end of August and he's still here, he might stick around with the Blues to start, and maybe other teams do get involved as the deadline approaches.
Hey, AZ Sports Guy, Tarasenko and Sanford for Clayton Keller. Who says no?
Arizona hangs up the fucking phone, Tom.
Probably Arizona, yeah.
I don't know. I talked to.
What do you mean? Who says no?
When we talked to Corey and Richie a couple times, and before Keller had his breakout year, they were ready to send Keller packing. So yeah, and of course, AZ Sports Guy says
no.
Well, no.
To be fair, Keller did show signs that he was about ready to make that next step. So that's probably not going to happen. Crushing our local St. Louis dreams. So I guess we'll have to settle for Phil Kessel, guys.
Damn.
Yeah. Damn. Phil Kessel, multi Stanley Cup winner, guy that looks like a guy that looks like all of us and makes us feel good about playing sports. I mean, I know I feel better about myself because I see Phil Kessel playing.
I mean, Phil Kessel looks like a guy he would fit right in Lime.
Oh,
yeah.
He'd probably have a booth down over at Rhonda's. I mean, come on. I don't think Mason knows
He'd
about
have his
Rhonda's.
own table. He'd have his own table at Pappy's. That's what's going to go on.
What he would have is he'd be in the corner of Rhonda's with and he'd have like a little mobile hot dog stand, and he'd be selling hot dogs for charity.
Oh gosh, what is it? There's a Futurama episode with the hot dogs in an hour. People will wait for a great hot dog, and that's what he'd have. He'd just have one of those rotisserie hot dog things that he could produce hot dogs out of there as he sits. Rhonda's is a strip club over here in Illinois. I'm not sure if you knew that, Mason. So that's kind of why we went that direction.
Well, yeah, he's going to have to compete with whoever makes the steaks at the strip club, because as we know, steak at a strip club, elite.
It certainly is. Well, speaking of that, I know Mason's working on a bunch of shirts and a bunch of merchandise as well. We're going to have that up very, very soon for sure.
Everyone's going to be so whelmed when they come out.
That one was phenomenal. When you guys see that shirt, I think everybody's going to want to get one because it is perfect.
I'm getting one.
It is perfect.
I'm going to get one. Absolutely. And we're going to have shirts. And I think you mentioned maybe a hat.
I got so many things. Okay, tell you what, I have an entire notes app of shit that I'm thinking of that I have like drafts for. I only showed you a few things. I have a bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely be on the lookout for those.
Different kind of content creation, by the way, while you're away from the.
So a couple of the things that I have, and this isn't everything, but I got shirts, beer sleeves, hats, stickers, mugs, and hoodies right now is what I've drafted on. So,
beer sleeves will definitely work in St. Louis. Definitely.
And Arizona Sports Guy, which face on a hat? Is it going to be Mason's face? Because I don't think you want my face on a hat.
You don't want my face.
You got your face on your car, Wags.
I do.
He does a little. What an egomaniac!
That's going to be like the Joy. That's going to be like a Joy FM sticker. People will have to avoid you on the highway. Just because. Oh God, it's Wags.
People avoid me anyway. So.
Oh man, that got dark.
What AZ? What? He's yelling at me. I got people yelling at me now.
Yeah, he wants your face on a hat, so he'll buy one. So.
He wants my face on a hat.
Yep, he wants your face on a hat, and he'll buy one.
My face doesn't belong on anything other than my face. So.
Hey, your sticker looks pretty awesome. Your sticker looks pretty cool.
Although we need Senpai to update your face because your beard is starting to
I'm trimming this motherfucker. I'm trimming this bad. Man, I'm trimming it hardcore.
I thought you were going full ZZ Top on us.
I wanted to, but look at how uneven this crap grows. So
well, you have to maintain it. You can grow it and maintain it.
Maintain it. I work in a freaking beard store.
So why are you complaining?
The case is hopeless. I know when the case is hopeless. Look at how little it grows on here and right here and
oh jeez, you're just giving up too soon.
There's a reason I can only have this because even here there's still if you look really closely there's a couple spots where it's there's hair and I have to creatively brush it every single time, otherwise I look like a hobo.
I have to brush my hair down in a hole like this, you can see, because if it was straight it would look like a freaking U. So
by the way, if your boss watches this, Mason, tell him that we will actually say the name of the store when he advertises with us.
I know he's busy. He was just in Hawaii.
Oh yeah, really busy.
I hear.
He was in Hawaii and his helicopter almost crashed.
Oh
what?
Wow!
Whoa!
A bird went flying through the windshield and shattered it.
Oh man. And here I thought meeting Guy was treacherous.
Ooh.
I'm kidding, Guy. I'm kidding. He's cool.
By the way, no, AZ, this is not a Warriors jersey. This is the only away Blues thing that I own.
Yeah, and I'm rocking. By the way, in case you're wondering, Justin Papineau from the equipment sale. By the way, although this may not originally be Papineau's, so. I posted this on the hockey jersey subreddit, which is if you need information on hockey jerseys, that's where you go. And as someone pointed out, this is a starter. This is a starter jersey from the 90s. Papineau wasn't drafted by the Blues until 2000. And the year after he was drafted, the Blues got rid of starter and they started wearing cohos. I think it was CCM and then coho, but maybe, who knows. But regardless, they had a different jersey that year. And someone on the hockey jerseys subreddit thought maybe this is actually a Jeff Courtnall. This was a Jeff, because this jersey's beat to shit. This game has seen some game action, but the theory is maybe it was a Jeff Courtnall and they just ripped his nameplate off, because Courtnall retired after 99-2000. They just ripped his nameplate off and gave it to Papineau.
You could be sitting on a legendary jersey right there.
Potentially.
You gotta find out.
So, but I have no way of verifying that, because I can't. There's like no. Like when you buy like team issued jerseys, they usually have like a tag or some sort of label that says this is from the 2000-2001 season, like many of my jerseys do. This one doesn't have any sort of labeling on it, so it'll forever be a mystery.
There might be someone. There might be someone. One more thing before we head out of here tonight from Derek, and it's not off topic in a sense, because we are still talking about the Blues, but we haven't talked a whole lot about this. But does Pirunovich make the roster, or is his time going to run out?
Jake Wallman is evidence that if you're a talented young left-handed defenseman, time never runs out for you. Wallman has been like the next one for years. And it finally took him until this year to really break through. They'll get Pirunovich all the time in the world. I mean, Mitch Reinke, who was another college standout, hasn't been able to quite make the NHL leap yet, but he's still in the organization. And he's still going to get chances. So, yeah, Pirunovich.
He got chances this year.
Pirunovich's time has barely even started. I mean, the shoulder injury was unfortunate, but they'll give him chances. But I do think he starts the year in Springfield, though. Because
I agree.
He needs to get up to speed. So
right. Well, it's not often you have a Hobie Baker Award winner just like relaxing and not doing anything for your team. That's very rarely the case.
Oh, and also a guy that as a defenseman led a league in points in college too. I mean,
something tells me he's going to get an NHL shot pretty soon.
Although remember, Peter Sena was a Hobie Baker winner, and
I'd start worrying in 5 years if he doesn't crack a lineup. That's when I'd start worrying. And even then, he'd make a hell of a trade piece.
That's the clock, Derek.
Yeah. 5 years. 5 years. And Peter Sena was a beast in my NHL video games. So don't diss on Peter Sena. Him and Eric Boganicki. I mean, those two guys they were my leading scorers.
See, that was the same logic of me playing NHL 11 the other day. Oh my God, Duncan Keith is the best player in the goddamn league.
By the way, Wags, if I had known that you had this much fandom for Peter Sena, I would have grabbed you a Blues jersey from the Clippers sale, because I think there was a Peter Sena there.
Damn. Well, yeah. I mean, that's when I really kind of got back into the Blues. I mean, I fell off during the lockout, but the Boganicki, Peter Sena, Hansu. I mean, all of that time frame was for me. I love that time. That's what really got me reinvested in Blues hockey.
That was also about the time that me and my dad had a limited season ticket package for the Blues. We only did full season one time, and that was in the really bad Bill Laurie years. And like our seats were like $4 a seat, because they were like up in like the last row of the nosebleed. But they were so much fun. But yeah, early 2000s, man, that was a good time for sure. And then as I said, Bill Laurie happened.
Yeah. The dark times, the days of the Empire. But
that's before my time. But.
Yeah, little before your time.
See, now, Wags, I feel kind of bad that I didn't, because I let Luke Whitman know that I was at the equipment sale. I should have let you know, because
for shame, Tom.
I could have gotten you a Boganicki, because I was actually looking at. I thought about grabbing one, but it was.
I mean, I was at work, so I probably wouldn't have answered anyway.
Responded, yeah.
So, don't feel that bad. Don't feel that bad.
It'll probably be there next year.
It very well could, although if people know I like the Boganicki jersey, maybe it won't be. So we'll see.
Speaking of slinging chicken.
I almost grabbed it literally just because Boganicki is also a Fort Wayne Comets legend. So, yeah.
There's that too.
Yeah. And I love my Comets.
Speaking of slinging chicken, somebody was in my Twitter DMs calling me homophobic because I eat Chick-fil-A on a regular basis. So to celebrate that, I'm giving away a QR code that's good for a free sandwich. So go check out my Twitter and like and reply why you deserve it. And I'm giving it away tonight. So I think this is I think every single time somebody calls me a bad word, that I'm going to give away a chicken sandwich.
So. You should keep sending them to my store too.
I could be the Chick-fil-A Jersey Fairy. That's what I can be right now.
In fact, Mason, you should make the QR code redeemable only at Wax Store.
Yeah.
So
I wish I could, but I get the codes from filling
It's the
out
survey.
surveys.
Yeah, it's the survey.
Gotcha.
They're valid at most Chick-fil-A's.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that they are. I think you can send them to people too. I think if it's on the app, you actually can gift.
Well,
gift
I
it
just
to
take a
somebody.
screenshot and send it, and I'd send it through DM and then use it. So
Yeah, that works. That works. Hey,
you can get a free sandwich.
and look. I'll just be perfectly honest and off the cuff. I work there. Totally understand the arguments both ways. I don't give a crap. I serve people food. People come in from all walks.
Chicken.
They come in from all walks of life. I don't care one way or the other. I'm feeding you a good meal. You're paying me for it. I don't care what you do outside of that. Yeah. Go for it.
I eat Chick-fil-A. I eat Raising Cane's. I eat Popeyes. I have never cared whether my chicken was pro-choice or pro-life. I just care if it tastes good.
Food is food.
Story.
Yep. Keep politics out of it. That's all I got to say.
Food is food.
Well, guys, thanks for hopping on tonight. I know we got a chance to talk to Scott a little bit about the Cardinals. We talked a lot about the Blues, a little bit about the NFL as well. We also hyped up the Kansas City trip that we have coming up here this weekend. It's going to be so much fun. Mason, I'm so sorry that you're not going to be able to join us on it. It's going to be a blast. Hey.
Ooh.
A surprise appearance possibly from Mason.
My boss. That's who says no.
Terrible. By the way, if you have any, this is going to be the first time for us going to KC. This is going to be my second, but I was very young the first time I went. So if you have barbecue ideas for Kansas City, I know we know about Arthur Bryant's. Yes, we know about that. But there's always those places that don't get the hype, that don't get the love. Feel free to, message us on Twitter or Facebook, drop a comment on this show. Let us know, where should we go chow down in KC?
Yeah, because I'm going to be hungry. I can tell you that. So for more information on our Kansas City trip, we'll be laying that out as the week goes on, including potential special guests that we're going to have lined up as well. Make sure you follow all of our social media profiles at Toasted Tavern and Toasted St. Louis. We'll unveil those as the week goes on, and we'll see you guys in Kansas City later on this week. For Scott, for Tom, for Mason, Blues Fan Reacts, I am Wags. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, and we'll see you the rest of this week.
Hey, it's you-man here from Casey. For all your sports news, catch the Toasted Tavern with Scott Tobin and the man called Wags, weeknights at 9 p.m. You can follow Toasted Tavern on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Let's get toasted.